in this webinar, we're going to be going over an upcoming feature in Director, the item limiter, which is going to be used to limit items in a transaction. You would definitely need something like this in order to follow compliance from manufacturers. A good example of this is the upcoming dual pod limitation, where you can only sell 4 pods per transaction. We're going to go ahead and go to Director. And to get to this, once you have been updated, you will go to the Maintenance module. And there's going to be a new tab called the Item Sell Limits right here. Now, let's take a look at a transaction in the point of sale without the item limiter. I'm going to open the POS up and go ahead and log in. And I've got my Dual Pods programmed to a button here, so I can sell as many of these as I need. There's no limit. So I can indefinitely add these to the transaction and cash the sale out. Once this rule comes into play, that's going to be an issue, because in order to sell the flavored pods, you have to have some kind of limiter on your point of sale. That's where this item limiter comes into play. So let's take a look at how this works. We first have to build a definition, a way to limit the items, and then we add the items to that definition. So I'm going to choose the New button. I'll call this sale limit Dual Pods, and I want that to be a limit of 4. And I'm going to assign this to my store, and then I'm going to choose the Save button. That'll save this definition, this rule. I misspelled Jewel there. Let me put another U. Resave that. So now I need to add items to the definition. So I'm going to choose the Add Item. That'll then bring up a window where I can choose to add items by description, UPC number, department, category, my standard filter options. I'm going to go by my description. So I'm going to search for Dual Pods. I'm going to find, and then there's my Dual Pods. I've got them named properly to where it's the exact items I want. So I'm going to just add all of those. And I'm going to save. And save. So we've got the definition built. We've got the items in that definition built, and I can always edit this by choosing that wrench. That'll let me edit what's here. Let's take a look in the transaction of how this will actually function now that I've got the rule built. I'll start the transaction. I'll ring up the Dual Pod. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try adding that 5th one now. And it let me add it. I'm going to keep adding. Now, what did I do wrong here? We have to pay very close attention to that. Let me cash that sale out. We're going to go back to Director, and we're going to take a look at this. We're going to look at every parameter on this item sale limits. So I've got my name, I've got my store that is assigned to, and the limit per sale, and then I've got my items that are assigned. Now, you can add and remove items by adding that button and choosing the Remove Item button. I can also add my stores by zone. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. And I'm going to open my POS back up. Open the POS up and log in. And I'm going to do the same exact transaction. There's number 1, number 2, number 3, 4, 5. And now I'm getting the error. I can't sell that other item. What did I do different? The only difference I actually did was I actually had to restart the POS. This is going to be something very important whenever you send that definition down to your stores. If the POS is actually actively open, and you send that rule down, then it doesn't know to load that rule. So make sure anytime you updated item sell limit definition, or you create a new one, you have the store basically close their POS down and then reopen it. That way it's going to, whenever it's doing that initial loading, which we'll see here, I'll close this out. This loading screen right here is actually telling you really, really fast what all it's loading. And it's loading that definition. So just remember, anytime you make a new definition or make changes to a definition, you need to have the POS closed and reopen. And a good way to do that is just have your PC restart. That's a good habit to have, is have your PC on a scheduled restart schedule. So we're going to do that transaction once more. And it doesn't matter how I do this. I can do individual items. I can do an item search. I can do another item search and add multiple at the same time. I'll do 2. And I'm going to get the error. And then, of course, if you have a scanner and you're scanning, same thing, you're going to get the error. No matter how you try adding that item to the transaction, it's going to follow that rule. It doesn't even add it to the transaction. So in this case, where I had 3, and I tried adding 2 that last time, I actually didn't add even a single 1, because I was trying to add more than the rule allowed. So in this case, you'd have to tell the customer you can only buy 1 more for a total of 4, then scan or search or add that 1 that they wanted. Keep that in mind, because if you try adding 2 when they only have 3 on the transaction, or even more, at trying to add more when they have 3 on the transaction, you'll need to add just 1. You can't add more than 1 at a time. Otherwise, you'll miss that item on the transaction, and then that item would effectively go out the door without being paid for. It's very strict per their rules. So, we've gone over building this definition, assigning it to a store, assigning the limit, and then assigning items to that definition. Now, there's also another thing to do with this compliance with Joule pods, and that's with age verification. They want you to have age verification enabled, which we do. We saw that pop up whenever I do a transaction. There's my age verification. But there's different requirements for different pods, and we're going to take a look at how you would handle that. So when I go to my price book and my item details page, and I'm going to search for a Joule pod so we can look at that. My description, relay one. We can see that it's assigned to the electric sig department. No matter which one I have, I've got those all assigned to my electric sig department. Now, age verification is going to come from the POS flag, and you assign a POS flag to a department. So they're all in the department number 70. Let's look at what POS flag that department 70 has. There's my department 70, and it's assigned the taxable tobacco POS flag. So to get the actual age verification, we're going to go to the POS flags. We're going to look at that. We can see the age required is 18. Well, there's a problem. I can only assign 1 POS flag to a department, and those Joule items have separate age requirements. If at the end of the day, I want those to share the same department, because to me that's good for reporting. So how do I handle that? You can actually assign a POS flag to an item, and that POS flag in the item level will supersede what the department actually has assigned to it. So we can see that right above this, I've got a taxable Joule. And we can see it's identical to the taxable tobacco, minus the fact that its age required is 21. They're identical other than the age required. So I'm going to keep my POS flag on electric sig as taxable tobacco, because I have many, many other items assigned to that electric sig department. I only want to update the required Joule items. So how do we handle this? We're going to go to the price book. We're going to look up one of the Joule items. We're going to do the mango pod. And if we go to the additional info, hyperlink, we can see in this additional information block, there is a POS flag drop down. By default, that's going to have nothing selected because it's pulling the POS flag from the department that it's assigned to. I'm going to choose the drop down, and I'm going to choose that taxable jewel POS flag. I'm going to save that, and then save the item. Now, this jewel mango pod will actually be utilizing the taxable jewel POS flag and not the taxable tobacco POS flag that the department is assigned. This will supersede the department that it's actually in. Now, I can, of course, go one by one and do this to every single item, but I can also use mass updates to make this a much faster process. So let's see how we do that in mass updates. First, I want to take note of the exact spelling of that POS flag. It's taxable jewel. I'll open mass updates, and I'm taking note of the categorization I have. I'm going to filter to those items from my tree view. So I'm going to go to my electric SIG, my electric SIG pod system, FTx lab, and then here's going to be all my jewel items. I'm going to filter by selection by choosing the mango, brulee, the fruit, and the cool cucumber. And because these 4 items actually need to have that rule to where they're the age requirement of 21, not 18. So I'm going to right click and filter based on selection. That's going to filter to just those items. I'm going to go to my field updates tab. And I'm going to go to the department, not choose department, I'm going to choose the POS flag name. Here, I can change that new text to taxable jewel and set that field to the new text. That will then update those 4 items to where they utilize the new POS flag. So let's open up the POS. I'm going to close so it takes into account my changes I've just made. Reopen that. And log in. Open the POS up, and I'm going to ring one of those up. Now first I'm going to ring up the mint. Notice 18. I will cash that cell out. I'm going to now do the mango, 21. So they're in the same department, same categorizations, but these 4 that I'd updated to use that new POS flag, that POS flag is superseding what the department actually has assigned to it. That's how you would handle that. And it's also going to continue following my rule. We saw the error pop up. I couldn't add that 5th one to the transaction, which is exactly what we want. Now, we've also heard some things where they want you to force scan a driver's license. Well, of course, whenever I ring something up that has an age restriction, I'm going to get this age verification. I can manually punch in the birth date. And everything's fine. There's also a setting we saw that visually verified. That lets me bypass the age verification. Now what if I want to force scan the driver's license? There's a setting to do that. I would actually have to go to my POS settings and I have to log into someone who actually has permission to view those POS settings. I'm under a standard cashier login, so I'm going to log off, log in under the manager. That will give me access to the settings. I'm going to go to the register settings. And I'm going to choose the force scan driver's license for age verification. I will save that. It's going to require me to restart my POS to make those changes come into play. I'll open it back up. Go ahead and log in. Open my POS up. And then whenever I scan an item, no matter how I enter it or scan it, when I choose that age verification, notice there's no way for me to manually punch that in. I absolutely have to scan the customer's driver's license. That's how you'd actually force scan the driver's license. So unless they give you their driver's license, then they can't, where it's scanned, then they can't purchase that item. The POS is not going to allow you to do that. Let's go ahead and turn that setting back off. I'm going to set it back to how I had it before. We're going to go through this one more time. I'm going to delete my item limit definition. There it is. I'm going to choose the delete button. I've already closed my point of sale. I'm going to open it back up. Due to it being closed and me making that change, that item rule is now gone. I don't have to force close it and reopen it. And I can add as many of those as I need to the transaction. I'm afraid I'll add 10 of those. It allows me, there's no issue, because I deleted that rule. I'm going to now create the rule once more. So I choose the new button, go into the sale limit name. I'm going to make that limit 4, assigning it to my store, saving the rule. I'm going to add my items now. There they all are. I'm adding those by selection this time instead of choosing the add all. Saving and saving. And then I have to remember, I have to close the POS down and open it for that rule to take place. So exit POS, log off, exit, reopening it. Log in, open my POS back up, and then I have that rule in place now. 21 or older, that's the 18, 21. I'm going to try to add that 5th to the transaction, and I'm getting my limit reached. Okay, so I hope everybody learned something today. That's what I had intended to cover. As a reminder, these webinars, they are weekly events that occur every Friday at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time and 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can view that by going to our website, goftx.com, choosing the FTX Lifeline tab at the top of the screen, scrolling down about halfway down that page, and choosing the webinar button. I hope everybody learned something today, and this update will be coming down soon. You'll be receiving a newsletter that has this and other changes that are going to be in the software. If you have any feedback or questions, you can email for questions at websupport@FasTraxPOS.com or feedback or suggestions at info@goftx.com. Thank you, and I hope you have a great weekend.